G'day, ZiggyD here. Whir up your hype engines because we have some Diablo 3 news, some real tangible news is coming. Patch 2.1.0 is on its way, it's just around the corner, coming very soon to a PTR near you. There's going to be a PTR test coming up. I'm expecting sometime within like a week based on the fact that they usually post these PTR like teasers and info posts usually a few days before the PTR goes up, so I'm expecting sometime in the next week. Considering there was a maintenance yesterday, I think it's probably going to be about a week at least until we get it, but very soon, and I am actually pretty hyped for this. I've shared my doubts about how good things like ladders and stuff like that are actually going to be for the game, but after reading Blizzard's post about what they're going to be putting into 2.1.0 and some of their thoughts on it and some of the ways they're going to actually approach the implementation, I'm pretty convinced this is going to be good for the game overall. Now, there are a couple of little things in the patch that I'm not particularly excited about, but overall it looks very good. So I'm definitely going to be jumping on the PTR, trying out the ladders, trying out the tier rifts and all that stuff. But let's jump into it and actually have a look at what's actually coming in this, and I'll give you guys a bit of share of some of my thoughts and analysis just in case you guys are interested in that. So let's switch on over. So coming up first is Seasons, basically the rebranded, renamed ladders. Now this point right here, this first point, the rebranding of the idea of ladders is actually pretty important, because I've said for a while now, and I think lots of people agree that Diablo 3 shouldn't really just have Diablo 2 ladders. You can't just put a ladder into Diablo 3. It's not going to add to the game. No one is actually really going to care. You can't just have a ladder in there. However, we can do some interesting things with the idea of engaging chunks of gameplay content, breaking down this X amount of months is going to be this gameplay season, and in that interesting things are going to happen. This is good. This is a good idea. It's what keeps people coming back to a game over a longer period of time. So when you get a new expansion pack, for example, people play for a few months, they thoroughly enjoy the game, and then they kind of just naturally stop playing. They play some other games or whatever, they get bored of it. With Seasons, you have this this new turnover system. Basically, you come back. Maybe you play for a few months and then it starts to die down, and then in two more months you're like, hey, a new season's starting up on Diablo. You know what? I've been feeling like playing some Diablo. Oh, there's some new stuff coming in this one. Let's give it a go. It's kind of like getting another new expansion pack again. It's a refresh. And while ladders are their idea of them is to refresh the economy, there's no economy in Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. Okay, so that part's gone. The second part is to have a chance to level new characters and try new builds. Yes, you can level new characters, but there's not really that much of potential to try new builds. You don't need to start a new character in Diablo 3 to try new builds. This is good for the game itself and for the design of the game, but it means that the idea of ladders and, these refreshing seasons isn't enough by itself. But Blizzard have detailed in this post what's actually coming with Seasons, and I'm actually pretty convinced it's going to be good now, despite my initial misgivings and the reasons I've shared with you guys just now. So firstly, well, the main focus of this is going to be the idea of conquests. I love that they've broken this down and got into this. So with each season, players have an opportunity to earn these conquests. These are essentially an achievement, basically. Now, these are limited in number. They've mentioned this thing, conquests are considered first come, first serve, and the first 1,000 individuals to complete a conquest will be given that season conquest. They'll be listed as one of the completers of this conquest, and that'll be immortalized on their profile and on the season ladders for anyone to go check out. You get the sick bragging rights with the conquest. Now, what's also really important about this is they're doing 10 to 15 of these conquests per season. That's what they're aiming for, and these aren't going to be Paragon levels. They've said in another developer post, which I can bring up just here, there's not going to be any Paragon leaderboards at all. They're not planning on Paragon leaderboards. They want to get away. The core game has this experience grind. Basically, that's like grinding out Paragon levels. Once you get your gear, grinding out Paragon levels is what's currently already in Diablo. There's no reason to make people start again and say, now grind experience again. They actually want to give something different, and this is really good. This is what I needed to see out of this. So they're going for conquests, and conquests are going to be gameplay feats. They're going to be challenges. They're going to be killing certain bosses. They're going to be doing certain things in tiered rifts. They're going to be, having certain progression, getting certain items, things like that. What exactly? I don't know. They haven't released this info yet, but it's going to be actual feats within the game. I hope there's kind of like they're kind of like discoverable, like they don't just throw them out there. I'd love it if we have to get thrown in and basically figure it out for ourselves. The first person to discover a conquest might keep it kind of secret, you know? Maybe they tell everyone, they post it on Reddit, hey, I got this conquest, here's the conquest, everyone else can try and get it now. And maybe it's hard to get, but still at least people know what they need to shoot for now. Or maybe they'll keep it secret and just tell a few friends. I don't know, I like this kind of thing. This kind of ideas excite me, so I'm hoping we see something like this. But this conquest thing is good, I love this. This is a nice focus for the ladders. Now, we've also heard in the past that there's going to be ladder or season-specific legendaries that can only drop in the seasons, and then at the end of the season, those legendaries will be moved into the core game and can drop in the core game. This is a nice motivator. I didn't think it by itself was enough, these season-specific legendaries, but in addition to conquests, maybe there's some crossover there. This is good. I like this. This seems like a good combination to me. Okay, so next up we have Greater Rifts. Now, Greater Rifts are the renamed Tiered Rifts. So they had this working project name of Tiered Rifts, and they've renamed these to Greater Rifts. Whatever. It makes no difference to me. But they've gone into some detail about exactly how the Greater Rifts are going to work, what they are, and more importantly, the reward that is going to be associated with them. So essentially, once you complete a normal Nephilim Rift and kill the boss, there's a chance that you will get a Greater Rift key. Now, I don't know what this chance is going to be. I assume it's not going to be too large. I think you'll only be getting a couple of these every so often. And the idea is then that you put this Greater Rift key into the Nephilim Rift, keystone pylon thingy, and then you get access to the Greater Rift. Now, this Greater Rift will be different from a normal Rift in that it will be timed, so basically you have to complete the progress bar and kill the boss within an allotted time limit, and you can see in the screenshot that I should throw up that there's kind of like these two little notches. Basically there's your progress and then there's the timer progress, and you kind of can compare yourself to that as you're going. So you know, like, okay, I'm playing it, maybe you're in hardcore, you're right, or I'm playing it pretty safe, but the timer bar is starting to go a little bit fast. I may need to actually speed things along a bit and catch up to that. So that's pretty cool. It's going to give a sense of urgency, it's going to give a bit more excitement to these rifts. Now, in addition to that, monsters within these rifts won't actually drop loot. Instead, all of the loot that the monsters would have dropped, or at least the value of the rift, is being moved to the Nephilim boss at the end. So it's kind of an all or nothing thing. If you can't complete the rift, you're not going to get anything. However, if you take that gamble and you complete the rift, then great riches await you at the Greater Rift boss. Now, if you complete that rift within the allotted time, then you are able to move on to Stage 2 of that Greater Rift, and so on, and it continues. So if you complete Stage 2, you can go into Stage 3. If you complete Stage 3, you can go into Stage 4, and keep moving through these, and it gets harder and harder each time. Now, this is very exciting, especially in hardcore, and this is going to add a lot to the hardcore game for me. You guys probably saw my recent video where I talked about Diablo 3 not really having much that makes hardcore that compelling. Well, this sort of thing is going to be something that makes hardcore a lot more compelling, having this very big risk association with this, where you need to push harder and faster to be able to get to the higher levels, but it's getting more dangerous and maybe you're getting more reckless as it progresses. Now, another thing that's pretty interesting about this is that the difficulty system of the Greater Rifts is actually separate from your normal difficulty setting. So let's say you're playing on Torment 1, right? And you go into a Greater Rift. It's going to start off feeling pretty easy, maybe like normal difficulty, maybe like Master or something like that. But then as you get into the second Greater Rift and the third Greater Rift, it's going to start moving up until you're eventually, maybe you're starting to push what would be the equivalent of Torment 2, even though you've only been farming Torment 1. And as you push further, it's going to keep scaling up until it's the equivalent difficulty of Torment 6. So it essentially has this separate but parallel difficulty system that's going to scale based on your progression rather than your setting. This is good. I think the game needs something like this, because the ability to set a very easy difficulty takes a lot of the risk factor, as I was mentioning, out of hardcore, but having it basically that it's forcing the difficulty up as you progress, so as you move forward in the game, it gets harder. This is nice. This makes a lot of sense. You know, games have used the idea that as you progress, things get harder for a very long time, and Diablo doesn't actually have that. In Diablo, as you progress, things get easier. Basically, like, there's not much. You can select your difficulty to account for this a bit, but a lot of the time things get easier. But this is going to be a bit of a change in that meta, and I really like that. That's very exciting. Now, there's one more thing to mention about changes to rifts before I move on to the rift rewards, because that is also very exciting. Firstly, they've changed the way that you open rifts now. So rifts require 1 keystone now, that instead of 5, and everyone in the party must have a keystone for it to for them to join, essentially. I'm not sure what happens if they don't have one. Maybe it doesn't open, or maybe they get kicked out, or they can't get in. I don't know. But basically, everyone has to have a keystone. So this kind of gets rid of the whole Rift It Forward thing, which I think is a good thing overall. Rift It Forward, the devs have said how this is not something they want for the game. It bypasses a lot of the challenge. Basically, you get loot without actually doing things a lot of the time, so it's not great for the health of the game. And this essentially Rift It Forward, in short. It's Rift It Forward is going to be done in this patch, and this is the same for greater and normal rifts as well. Everyone needs a keystone. Everyone needs a greater rift keystone if you want to do it as a party. Now, there are going to be leaderboard rifts. Now, these is going to be in the core game and in the seasons, and I'm not sure how the challenge things are going to how they're going to tie in with this. But basically, there's going to be like single player greater rift leaderboards, so best demon hunters to get the furthest and the fastest and things like that. And then there's going to be 2 players, 3 players, 4 players, so party rifts as well, party greater rifts. So who clears greater rifts up to a certain level in the fastest speed while in a 4-player party, and so on. So you're going to be able to have that co-op thing or that solo thing going on there in a competitive sense, this is really good. Now let's get on to the really exciting part. Let's talk about it. Legendary gems. Yes! Oh, yeah. Legendary gems. So good. So we need a gem system overhaul. This is not a gem system overhaul, but it is something. It is something we can sink our teeth into, and it's actually something that sounds pretty exciting. So greater rifts are a challenge, this is the whole idea is this challenge, but what do you get from the reward? Surely you don't just get more legendaries, you probably get that as well. But here is the real incentive, these legendary gems. These guys come from the Nephilim rifts, these guys come from the greater rifts, and you can upgrade them via greater rifts. So you get a legendary gem. Now this thing can have, these things can be socketed in rings and amulets, I believe, so that's going to increase the value of sockets on these items, which is usually pretty much useless. And you're going to be able to socket these extra powerful and more randomized legendary gems, and these things may include player skills and things like that as well. I'm hearing words about that, in addition to things like a Hellfire Amulet coming that will have player passives, which is pretty cool. So lots of gearing changes coming from this. But the most important thing is you get these legendary gems, and then you take your legendary gem with you, and when you complete the greater rift, there's a chance that you can upgrade your legendary gem, and completing higher difficulties of greater rifts gives you more chance of upgrading your legendary gem. This is good. This is exciting. I hope there's a lot of variety in the legendary gems. I hope there are things that are really build defining, changing, actually having powerful skills on the legendary gems, having interesting and different stats, and then the ability to scale them up through achievements in-game, difficult achievements. This is very exciting. So I'm very hyped for legendary gems. This is a huge thing, and I was already pretty excited for the tiered rifts thing, but now with the word of legendary gems in addition to the greater rifts, I think this is going to be a very sick patch. So the next change is that, is also sort of related to rifts, is they're going to be adding in a new zone type, the cesspools. Now the cesspools were originally the sewers of Westmarch. They were going to be added into Act 5, but they were cut. They didn't have a place for them. It didn't feel right. They weren't quite finished yet, so they were cut from the game. Basically, they were a deleted scene. But now we get back the deleted scenes like a DVD of the olden days. We now get the cesspools back in the form of Nephilim rifts. This is good. I like this. I want Blizzard to start doing more with rifts. Rifts are these parallel universes that you can spawn and go to. They don't have to be places from the core game. Hell, why don't they? I don't mind if they start putting in places from StarCraft and Warcraft in these rifts. I wouldn't mind if there's some crossover like that. This isn't quite as exciting, but this is still something. So we're getting this different zone, the cesspools, these sewer-like zones, and we're going to have a bit more variety in rifts. This is good. I hope Blizzard continue following on with this idea and continue adding more and more different zones and themes and styles to the rifts, because that's always good. So variety is the spice of life, after all. And let's go on to the combat changes. There are 3 combat changes I want to go over. The first is a pretty positive one, I think. Healing. There's going to be some changes to healing. Now, health globes are currently really strong, but regen and life gain on hit are pretty weak in terms of gearing. Blizzard recognized this, and they're going to be toning back the healing from health globes by a pretty decent amount, it sounds like. And then they're going to be toning up the healing from gear, so making regen and life gain on hit more relevant, and maybe also the increases to like healing globes and stuff like that you can get on gear. So making it more important to gear for healing, especially if you're going into those high level greater rifts. Gearing for healing is going to be super important because you can't rely on those health globes quite as much. They're going to work pretty nicely in the lower difficulty rifts, but in the higher difficulty rifts, you need your gear to take over a lot of the grunt in terms of healing. So this sounds like a pretty good change to me, and it suits the core changes that went into Reaper of Souls in the first place of making combat more tactical. So I'm very hyped for that. Now, next up we have a change that I'm less than thrilled with, a change that I'm not so excited about. There had to be a little bit of a downer. I did say that there was some things in this patch that I'm not super psyched about, and this is it. The changes to dexterity. Now, monks and demon hunters, our dexterity classes have always been a little bit different from our armor and all resist cousins. A little bit more special in my mind. They had dodge, so dexterity converted to chance to dodge. This was a pretty unique mechanic, but it was very difficult to balance and was often seen as quite useless. There are some builds in which dodge was useful, like for example using like the awareness helmet, and then the fact that you would dodge occasionally would mean more uptime on awareness. So basically if there's anything that correlates with not getting hit, then dodge supports that. But overall, dodge wasn't that reliable, and it was very difficult to make a survivable monk and demon hunter based on dodge. You know, as monks could rely on a lot of resistances through some of their passives, one with everything, for example, but demon hunters had a bit more trouble with it. Now, Blizzard's response to this has been to convert dodge to armor. So basically, dexterity gives armor now. I don't know, guys. This feels like the killing. This kills me. This kills me. I'm not gonna lie. This kills me. Dexterity, right? No, that's not armor. Being dexterous, being acrobatic, being agile means dodging damage. It means getting out of the way of damage, or at the very least, mitigating damage through sidestepping, glancing blows. And this is what I wish Blizzard had have done. This idea of glancing blows, something like this would have been far more interesting and would have still have served the same purpose of making dexterity be a mitigating factor instead of 100% dodge. The problem was it was 100% dodge, not reliable, it's random, etc. Glancing blows is a bit better. Let's say based on your dexterity, compared to the enemy type, the hit, this can work against everything. You have a chance of getting a glancing blow of different powers. You can have a slight glancing blow. So let's say you only take 75% of damage. You could have a very minor glancing blow, so you only take 25% of damage, or maybe you take half damage. Basically, it's the same idea as armor, but it's a different style of mechanic, and it's more interesting than armor. But instead, they've just gone the route of making dexterity give you armor. So exactly the same as strength, dexterity will now give you armor, intelligence will continue giving you all resist, but that's about it. The dexterity is becoming armor. I don't know, it feels kind of lame to me, it feels kind of sucky, lazy, I don't know. Hopefully, I hope they revisit it in the future and make it interesting. Now, there are some passives for both Demon Hunter and Monk that turn dodge or dexterity into armor. These are going to be reworked, so hopefully these become something interesting to help counteract the subpar interest that is armor. But I don't know. I wish they had gone with something a little bit more interesting. But in the end, it's not a major deal. It just takes away something special and something different about the classes. Kind of makes things a little bit more uniform overall. Now, the final change I want to go over is another change to Demon Hunter. She is getting changed. Preparation Punishment is being changed dramatically. Now, Preparation Punishment is a big part of a lot of different builds, including the standard Cluster Arrow, Loaded for Bear builds. Basically, currently, you use it to cycle Discipline into Hatred. It costs Discipline and it gives you Hatred. And usually it's done at a pretty efficient ratio so that you can eventually get infinite Hatred, basically. That's the infinite Hatred and Discipline is the current sort of meta for Demon Hunters. Well, Preparation Punishment is having its discipline cost removed, sounds good, but then it's having a 20-second cooldown added. Now, the base is that Preparation with its 20-second cooldown is about the same as what you would be with no other modifiers in terms of regenerating your discipline. So basically, you would use Preparation every 20 seconds anyway. However, this means that resource cost reduction, which you're building for to do things like Cluster Arrow spam, now does not work on Preparation. You need cooldown reduction. Now, this is not necessarily a bad change. Demon Hunter needed some changes in terms of not only being Cluster Arrow Load for Bear until you get the Torment 6, where you switch to the pet builds with the Marauders 6 set. But hopefully this is going to add a bit more variety. For those of you guys wondering and who really enjoy Cluster Arrow builds, and I do, I quite like my Cluster Arrow build. it's still going to be viable, I think. 20-second cooldown with a bit of cooldown reduction thrown in maybe is still going to be enough to have pretty near to infinite cluster arrow spam, I think, but it's not going to be as powerful as it is now. You can still rely on those health globes from Reaper's Wraps and Blood Vengeance, I think, to do most of the work, but maybe in the higher difficulties, Torment 4 and 5, it's not going to be as viable to spam that unless you're stacking a lot of cooldown reduction. Pretty interesting change overall. I'm hoping to see some more things coming for Demon Hunter. In addition to this, I think we need some buffs. This is essentially a nerf. I think we need some buffs in there as well for different skills to promote that diversity. Anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed my overview and some of my analysis. Let me know your thoughts about some of the different changes. How do you feel about it? Are you hyped? Are you going to be playing the PTR? Are you going to be waiting for the patch? Or does none of it really interest you? Let me know. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.